How you guys doing? This is my cat here. Please, please ignore my cat on the table. I gotta throw him out real quick. Come here, kitty. Come on, get down. Alright, well maybe he'll just chill over there for now. Anyway, quit making noise. Just stay over there. Hello everyone, my name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. What's happening? So, apologies to those of you who tried to tune in on Saturday or Sunday and the stream just never got going. Just had some technical difficulties here. Connection on my end was all screwed up. I don't know what's going on with that. But, you know, looks like we're here now. So, yeah, that really sucked. And I sat there for like 3 hours trying to get that going. Finally gave up at like, 1 in the morning. So, but anyway, so here we are. And before we get started, because I got a lot of stuff I want to talk about, this was the thing that we were doing last time in our last stream, which was right before the election on Halloween. And, monsters and stuff, it's pretty cool, but I want to start something new. So let's go ahead and move this aside. And I think maybe we'll draw some dragons today. Oh, wait. That paper is, like, kind of nasty looking. Yeah, let's not use that one. That one's all nasty. There we go. Okay. Mostly decent looking piece of paper. Alright. Cat, quit making noise over there. You know what? I gotta throw him out. Hang on a second, folks. Sorry. Come here. Come here. No. Out you go. Alright. Okay, sorry about that. I see that, we do have some viewers. You know what? Before we move on, I just want to do one thing real quick here. Because they're saying that my resolution is crappy. So let's try... I want to try one other thing before we get going. Let's try 1080 by... and then hit OK. Alright, there we go. Whoa. Wait a second, is it really that big? Holy crap, maybe I shouldn't have, like... Yeah, okay. Alright, I need to shrink my thing here. I didn't know my camera could do that. That's actually kind of nice. Alright. And let's kind of move this down. Okay, that might be a little bit better. Alright, so can we see stuff? Okay. Better resolution, I guess. Maybe this will make it look, not so crappy. Alright, and let's see. Dock my controls back over here. Okay, so the election is over, which is pretty awesome, finally. And Joe Biden won, so I myself am very personally happy about that. A lot of people aren't. A lot of the Trump people are still pretty angry. And there's over 70 million of them. So that's going to be kind of the main subject for the stream today is... Well, I want to start out a little bit talking about these allegations from the Trump people of voter fraud. And because what's happening now is that there was the Q people, the Republicans, the hardcore MAGA people, kind of built up this sort of mythology around what was going to happen in this election, right? And seeing those vote totals slowly go over to Biden has kind of caused a crisis of faith for a lot of, of the more hardcore Trump supporters, right? especially when it comes to the more conspiratorial-minded people, the QAnon people, the people that think that, you know, Donald Trump was just waiting in order to, like, for the right moment to spring so that he could, like, get his master plan into action and arrest all of the Democrats for, you know, child porn or some shit like that. Right? Those people. The people that have been building up this mythology in their heads for the last, you know, 4 years that Donald Trump was going to purge the nation of leftists and communists and things, right? And it didn't happen. And now they're starting to see their fantasies starting to just, you know, crumble, right? Well, these things tend to not die very easily. And this is kind of how you can tell that it's mostly like the same thing. It's like almost a religion, almost, right? Because, you know what, that doesn't look right. Hang on. The first half of this is just going to be me, like, plotting out, you know, shapes and things like that, getting the composition down. So, you know, don't expect me to start getting into, like, details here for a little while. But anyhow, so whenever you get, like, say, you know, a comparable thing would be a religion almost, right? And I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, there was a guy that, oh wow, someone is calling me, phone call. Let's see who it is. Hello?
Hello, good afternoon. This is Allie with Dr. Funk's office.
Oh, hi. Good. What can I do for you?
Good. I was just calling to check in, see how you're doing after we did those fillings yesterday.
Fine. You know, I can't really talk right now. Can I call you back?
Yeah, no, that was perfect. That's all I was just checking.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
all right, have a great day.
Thank you. Bye. Sorry, it's my dentist. I actually just went to the dentist yesterday. Got fillings. Anyway, that's probably a bad thing, right? To be answering phone calls in the middle of a live stream. That's probably going to turn some people off. You know, oh, Mark, that's very unprofessional. Sorry. Okay, I won't do that anymore. Anyway, so what was I saying? Oh, yeah, so basically when a religion has a failed prophecy, one of two things will happen. Either it'll get abandoned, people lose faith, and, you know, whatever cult it is or something, whatever religion, will lose followers because of that, and it'll slowly fade away. Or what more commonly happens is it gets rationalized away in some fashion, and you know, the inconsistency gets rationalized away, and new prophecies are made, and the religion moves onward. And I think that definitely applies to this cult of personality that's been built up around Donald Trump, because, you know, what they were claiming was going to happen didn't happen, right? Donald Trump did not, you know, arrest all of the Democrats in the country. You know, the QAnon people call this the storm, right? You know, the storm, this is the calm before the storm, right? And if you're not aware of where that comes from, that literally comes from Donald Trump, because he was at a photo op with a bunch of his generals, and then he turned to, like, one of the people and said, you know what this means, right? You know what this is? And then they said, what? And he goes, it's the calm before the storm. And then they said, oh, what does that mean? And he goes, you'll find out. This is literally, these are words out of Donald Trump's mouth, right? Basically what it was Donald Trump just, like, bullshitting from the hip, trying to, like, you know, hype up some, like, something, who knows, right? I think he was just talking out of his ass, and, like, these people, the QAnon people and the MAGA people, turned this into this massive, like, massive fucking conspiracy theory that built up over one, like, throwaway line that Donald Trump just, like, said because, you know, he doesn't, I don't know, who knows why he fucking said it. It didn't make any sense even when he said it to begin with. You know, I think it was just like, I don't know. I think he was just bullshitting, really. So anyhow, yeah. So none of that shit happened. So what do? Well, it seems like they're adapting their mythology now. And you can say that you can find, examples of this in religions going back forever, right? One could even say that Christianity is probably the result of this, because if you look at Christianity, it was a, apocalyptic prophetic religion where whatever person there was that is eventually became Jesus Christ, right? Whatever historical person there was, if there was one, that lived back then, was basically preaching about the end of the world and how, the judgment day was going to come. And if you read the early, if you read the Bible, it sounds like when he's talking to the apostles, it sounds like he's saying this is going to happen before you die, right? This will happen within our lifetime. That's what it says, right? That's what he says. That's what it says in the Bible. It says, the second coming will occur and we'll all be redeemed, before some of you who are alive now, pass on. That's essentially, I'm paraphrasing, right? Then Jesus Christ gets caught and crucified, executed. It didn't happen. So instead of, I'm sure plenty of people back then, once they realized the second coming wasn't going to happen, abandoned the faith. But what ended up happening is that, the early Christians adapted. They adapted, saying, okay, well, Jesus is going to come back again. And they made a new prophecy, and the religion went on, And you can see this same thing happen over and over and over. Even not that long ago, about around 2011, there was a guy named Harold Camping predicted the, second coming of Christ. People were selling, people in his church were selling their houses and shit like that, claiming that this was going to happen. Doesn't happen. Do all those people then stop being Christians? Nope. Do all these people then that this preacher convinced to sell their houses and spend their life savings preparing for the end times, and the end times didn't come, do they just not be part of his church anymore? Nope, that's not what happened. They came up with a rationalization for it, right? Oh, it was a spiritual awakening. That's literally what Harold Camping said, right? The same shit happens over and over and over in pretty much any religion that has prophecies in it, because the prophecies inevitably fail, right? The same shit you could kind of say now, QAnon, and all that stuff, they're not really religion, but they're getting pretty close to it. It is essentially, I think right now, if I was a sociologist, or, whatever the fuck they're called, right? God damn it. Sociologist. I can pronounce words totally. If I was, a person who studies religions, right? God damn, it's only 2 o'clock. I haven't even been drinking yet. If I was such a person, right now would be an excellent time to be writing a thesis or a paper on, how early religions are formed, right? Because we're seeing it happen in real time. So what's going on with the Trump people, with the QAnon people, with the MAGA people, right? Now that Donald Trump lost the election, all the shit that they prophesized was going to happen didn't happen. What's going on with these people now? Well, they've moved into kind of, now they're all claiming it was rigged, it was stolen, right? Because they can't, accept the fact that their boy lost, so there must be a reason why they lost. And that reason must be evil, cheating, tree-hugging Democrats ripped us off, right? That has to be the reason. Even though, keep in mind that for the last 6 months, 8 months even, in the polls, Joe Biden was ahead, every time in the polls, right? I think there was maybe twice in the last 6 months where Donald Trump actually pulled ahead in the polls, right? Most of the time, Biden was ahead by a lot, 7, 8 points, something like that, right? Now, that didn't necessarily translate to the utter crushing victory landslide that we all thought was going to happen on election night. But, you know, those numbers are starting to line up a little bit, right? Now that the polls are being, you know, now that the mail-in ballots are being counted, stuff like that, you know, Joe Biden being ahead by 8 points in, say, you know, Michigan or something like that. You know, maybe it's not 8 points, that margin, but it's definitely pretty big, right? It's, you know, so those polls aren't as off as much as everybody thinks. And I really think, like I said in my hot take video, I think one of the reasons why the polls don't match as much as they were predicted to is the result of voter suppression. I really think that. And I think that if we were to take into account ballots that were mailed, which never arrived because of the post office, the effects of vote intimidation, the effects of voter suppression in various states, things like in Texas where, you know, the governor turns around and like reduces the number of drop-off stations to 1 per county. You know, some of those counties in Texas are gigantic, you know, thousands of square miles, right? So it's like, that's going to have an effect. And I think that's what we're seeing. You know, that's where I think a portion, maybe not all of it, you know, maybe the polling was wrong as well, but I think a portion of that, you know, that gap in between the polling and the actual results can be attributed to that, which is scary shit, which basically means that the turnout was larger than even the polls anticipated. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the turnout was large enough that all of those voter suppression tactics basically didn't work, right? I mean, if you look at the you know, popular vote totals, I mean, what's Joe Biden ahead by? Almost 5 million at this point. You know, it might even be 6 or 7 million by the time all the counting's done. So, you know, who knows, right? I mean, I think last time I checked, he was up by almost 5 million votes. So yeah, man. Anyway, so let's take a look at some of the let's see, some of the claims from the MAGA people about voter fraud, because, you know, that's why they're claiming all those votes are fake. You know, the 4 million people, right, who voted for Joe Biden and didn't vote for Trump, those must all be fake, right? Also keep in mind that this is the exact same thing they said about in 2016, right, when Trump lost the popular vote by 3 million votes. They also said, oh, well, this is all voter, you know, voter fraud, right? These were illegal aliens being bussed into the country to vote for Hillary, right? Do dragons have ears? I don't know. I've never given ears to a dragon, but yeah, okay, let's just give them sort of like... I was thinking this one would be like a Chinese dragon, and this one would be like a Western dragon. That'd be kind of cool. Dragons also have sort of beardy type things, right, going, and like, you know, hair like this, right? So they got hair coming out like that, and then they have like those sort of Fu Manchu things going, right? All right, and then horns on Eastern dragons look more like antlers, so they're not really like horns on Western dragons are like devil horns. You know, Western dragons are all evil. They got spikes and scales and, you know, fire breathing and all this shit. And then like Eastern dragons are like, you know, sort of godlike, graceful, godlike serpent things with like fish scales on them. So anyway, what were we talking about? I kind of lost track. Oh yeah, so we're talking about claims of voter fraud, right, from the Republicans. So let's see, there's actually a Twitter thread that this one guy actually, let me just do a real quick thing here. Let's see. Voter fraud debunk mega thread. Okay. So this is what I'm looking at here for you guys in the chat, if there's anybody left in the chat. Let's see. Bad. Oh, I see there were some people. Bad 66 Chevelles. Go ahead and put whatever questions you want to ask, Chevelles. And what I'll do is at the end of the stream, for like the last half hour, I'll go through and read questions. So anything you want me to talk about, just go ahead and type it in the live chat. I'm not ignoring you, but I find that if I pause the stream to take questions, then it ends up like all I end up doing is taking questions. So yeah, just so put anything you want me to address, any questions you have, just put it in the chat, and then like the last half hour, which will probably, it'll be all about answering whatever questions are in the chat. So anyway, but I just put in the chat here the thing that I'm looking at, and just to kind of show you guys, this is it right here. This is by a guy named Isaac Saul, and he has a nice big long mega thread talking about election fraud. So if you want to read along with what I'm doing, that's what I'm reading. So okay, let's see. First one has to do with video of officials in Detroit boarding up windows, papering up windows at their polling center in Michigan. And so this video kind of went around Twitter and is like being cited as evidence of voter fraud, Well, so one thing to keep in mind is that these counting places have observers inside of them, right? Certified observers from each political party. And that's just not Republican and Democrats, but, the Green Party, Libertarians, and all the people that are on the ballot get to be inside of these polling places, right? Counting places, I guess. I guess they would call them, they're not polling places at this point. They're poll watchers, right? Certified poll watchers. And there is an even number of each one. So if you have 3 Republicans, then you got to have 3 Democrats. And that's the law. All right? That's how it works. So that ensures that it's fair. Keep in mind, okay, because it's very popular to say in the United States that our election processes are all screwy and disjointed and fucked up, and they are. But you also got to remember that we've been doing this for, 200 years now. And for a lot of these laws, there's a good reason for them. Why do you think, for example, there has to be an equal number of poll watchers inside of, when they're counting ballots? There has to be an equal number of observers when they're counting ballots. Why do you think that? Right? Because they've learned from experience that if they don't have that, then one team, one party will get access to the ballots and will be able to monkey with shit, and the other party won't be able to stop them. So that's why there's equal numbers. So whatever table there is that they're counting the ballots at, there'll be 2 guys, one from each party, sitting there watching them counting it, make sure that the other side isn't cheating. All right? So this kind of shit is, stuff that they have experience doing this. Okay, so why did they board up the windows? Well, it was because people were videotaping, the guys inside counting, right? Well, that's actually a form of, that could be used for a lot of things, but mainly it would be, voter intimidation, essentially, right? Like, kind of like if, you don't want these people, like the people who are counting the ballots, to get doxxed, and then before you know it, they're getting death threats because this particular district went to one candidate over another. Right? So that's so basically that's why they boarded up the windows, because these guys deserve privacy. Right? And in order to ensure that they're not being intimidated and that they don't have, somebody like trying to track down who they are, and before you know it, like there's fucking armed goons outside of their houses and shit threatening them, right? And that's, so that's what they did. Okay, completely justified there. Let's see. So another one was that apparently there were Republican poll watchers who were trying to get into, ballot counting places and were refused. And now they're citing this as evidence of, there's something, how come they won't let us in, blah, blah, blah. There's some kind of like shenanigans going on. The reason for this apparently is that, like I said, there has to be an equal number of watchers from each party. And they already had their number of watchers of the, from their party in the polling place, right? So they couldn't just, if more of them show up, they're not allowed to come inside because they already have their allotted people, right? So this is also BS. That should not be happening. Let's see. Let's moving on here. Moved on. Okay. Partisan watchers. Yeah, so this is one of the things this guy Isaac Saul says. It appears some certified Trump-supporting poll watchers filmed themselves trying to enter polling places, and when they denied, made a scene. And that's, that's what we're talking about here. It's like you can't just show up to any polling place. You have to go to the one you're assigned to, right? And the reason why you go to the one you're assigned to is because that way there's an even number of polling watchers. So, okay, that's bullshit. Let's see, another one. An 118-year-old person named William Bradley voted via absentee ballot in Wayne County, Michigan. But in real life, William Bradley died in 1984. And let's see. So what happens is that when people who vote and then die, their ballots don't get counted. I mean, which, makes perfect sense because you're not alive anymore, so you no longer have a right to vote. Right. So one thing to keep in mind here is that I was actually listening to a thing about this. Apparently, if you don't have it could be that this guy didn't have birth records, right? So he's not really 112. It's like they use what they would do is they would take 1900, and then that would be the date for when people who didn't have birth certificates, right? Which you would get from someone who's really old. If this person really was 118 years old or 120 years old or whatever, chances are they probably don't have a birth record, right? So, the thing is that kind of thing happens all the time, right? So votes like that get flagged and certified. So even if, for example, let's say, you vote and then before the vote is counted, you die of, a car accident or COVID-19 or some shit like that, that vote would get flagged because what they do is they cross-check it with, the people who have died recently, right? They go through the registrars and they check, is this person still alive? And if they're not alive, their vote doesn't get counted. So that's really not something you have to worry about. That's not a thing that, even happens. And the thing is, even if it did happen, one vote like that is not going to change an election. Not really. Yeah, we'll come more to that later, when we actually talk about, I want to talk about how many actual proven cases of voter fraud there actually has been. So it's not a problem. The number of, how many people die and then vote? Well, I guess this year, 230,000 people died over the course of this entire year. How many of those people died after they casted votes? I'm just talking about the pandemic here, right? It's not a problem. It's basically that's not something that would change an election, right? And that's a thing that they've been aware of for decades. I mean, there's a process in place to handle cases like that, right? So, did you find 100,000 votes of people who were dead, who then voted? That's a different story. One guy, not a problem. All right. So, anyway, I don't know if I want to read all of these because it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of long. So let's see. Here's the next one. Some people allege that Wisconsin had more votes than registered voters. Proof of election fraud. Well, the reason why that this happened is because Wisconsin actually has same-day voter registration. So the list, you know, of registered voters doesn't really matter because those people went and registered before they voted. So why is that a problem? You know, that just comes from people not understanding how voting works. Anyway, I don't want to get bogged down on this too much, but if you want to check it out, the guy's name is Isaac Saul on Twitter. He's got an entire list. You know, he talks about, well, one more. Let's see, where is it? There's one more, okay. Some posts went viral about a pause and dump in Milwaukee where ballots were found. This is a lie. Counting never stopped. The count was done, and the pause was the time it took to get them from the polling place to the central counting location. And then one more here. There was this big thing I want to mention. There was this big thing about what was it? It was a sudden jump in votes for Joe Biden, right? That basically what it was that a bunch of people went to sleep. Donald Trump was in the lead. They come back in the morning, and then they find that his lead has evaporated, and like 100,000 votes suddenly are for Joe Biden, right? And they're saying that it was this glitch, you know, like this voting glitch that, you know, suddenly like this computer glitch that increased the vote count for Biden by like, you know, 100,000. So that one in particular is not true because that had nothing to do with actual counting, right? Let's see, we got this on here. It had to do with one of the news outlets had a computer glitch that just had, so it was like basically God, what was the name of the news outlet? You know, let me look that up. Let me just because I don't want to like do this from my memory here. Let's see, 2020 election glitch. There we go. Rock County. Okay, so system glitch in Wisconsin. Reversal of swap votes removes lead from Joe Biden. No, Rock County did not have a glitch that stole votes from Trump. So basically what this was let's see, blah, 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 blah. It had to do with a website. What the hell website was it? Of course, this doesn't actually say what the goddamn website was. I'll put the link to what I'm reading right here. Let me copy this. I will put this in the chat as well. There you go. And let me turn on my monitor so you can see what I'm reading. So this is from PolitiFact. Right. Reversal of swap votes removes lead from Joe Biden. Right. And this is basically not it. It had to do with a media outlet that was tabulating the votes, right? And, you know, they had a glitch on their website, and that had nothing to do with the actual votes being counted. But you know, as you know, it's like people who are desperate will just grab onto shit like that and pass it around, you know, without actually verifying facts, right? And that's what kind of happened with that. So far, it really does seem like most of the, like, all of these claims are baseless. There really is no actual, like, verified claims of any voter fraud, any systemic voter fraud that, like, of the kind where 3 million votes would get changed, for example. That doesn't seem to be happening. It didn't happen in 2016. It doesn't seem to be happening now. Let's see, another one that I got. There was a video going around on Twitter of a bunch of ballots being burned, right? And it was like, so first off, before we talk about this, right, something to keep in mind is that when you see something on Twitter, right, Twitter is not a media outlet, right? Your average dude who just tweets something is not actually like a reporter, right? Anybody can open a Twitter account and tweet any kind of shit they want. And there's no fact checking involved, right? There's no vetting, right? There's no reason to believe that what this person is saying is actually true or not. And so you end up getting a lot of ridiculous misinformation coming, from places like Twitter, from Facebook, whatever, right? So some asshole tweeting something is a lot different than seeing it in a verified, an actual media outlet, something like CNN or Fox even, or whatever. The difference being is that a news outlet will actually investigate a story before they put their name on it, right? That's, because it's their reputation that's on the line. Okay, so if you get a phony baloney story that goes through an actual real life news outlet, are you gonna, and you find out later that story was wrong or it was fake, they just made it up, whatever, are you gonna go back to that news outlet? Probably not, right? Well, some moron on Twitter that just posted some random bullshit doesn't have that problem. He could just keep posting all the shit he wants, right? No one's gonna hold his ass accountable, for posting lies. So this is the kind of shit you have to remember. That creates an environment that is very, very easy for misinformation to, thrive in, right? And so that's why all of these things, you see them coming out of Twitter, you see them coming out of, like, Facebook posts, that kind of thing, and also places like Project Veritas that, just make up blatant bullshit. Project Veritas is, they're essentially what real fake news looks like. They just make up shit out of whole cloth that has no basis in fucking reality, and their entire point is designed to make people, right, basically, like, hit their political opponents. That's what it is, We could talk about Project Veritas later, but so a lot of this stuff is coming out of, like Twitter, Facebook posts. It's being spread around social media where there's little to no fact checking at all. And that's why people believe these things. That's why they're so easy to debunk. So, for example, I'm not gonna look this up, but there's a video of somebody burning ballots. Supposedly it was a video of a postal worker separating out ballots that were for Donald Trump and then burning them. And in real life, what it is that they're sample ballots. They're ballots that you can print from your computer. Right? So somebody made that on purpose. Somebody did that on purpose in order to spread misinformation. Somebody went, downloaded this ballot that you can get on your computer, printed out a shitload of them, burned it, posted it up on purpose in order to make it look like Donald Trump was getting the election stolen from him. You have to watch out for stuff like that. The thing is that it doesn't matter if it's true, see, because the damage already gets done. So when you put up misinformation like this, right, somebody is going to believe it out there. Maybe not all the people that you're targeting, right? But somebody will. Somebody out there is then going to act accordingly, you know. And that's what it's all about. It's not about, like, actually, you know, getting even the majority of people to believe it. It just has to be enough in order to sow chaos and confusion, right? And so you got to remember, it's like, well, who even would put up that video in the first place, you know? I mean, was it a Trump supporter? Was it a foreign actor that was doing it on purpose just to, like, stoke, like, you know, chaos and division in the United States? Was it a diehard Trump supporter guy who thought he'd just, like, you know, create a little phony evidence because there isn't any real evidence, right? Justifying it in his head and somehow, you know, saying like, oh, well, it doesn't matter if I'm lying or whatever, as long as I help Trump get, you know, reelected. I mean, seriously, got to keep this shit in mind. Here's another story here. Let me open this guy up. Oh, not that one. All right. This is in the Guardian. Okay, go away. Oh, no, fuck you. All right, here we go. U.S. postal worker recants voter fraud claims after Republicans call for inquiry. So what's going on with this story? Well, basically, there was a postal worker that went and signed an affidavit that he was ordered to by a supervisor to tamper with the ballots by backdating ones that arrived late. So basically, if a ballot came in late, he was supposedly ordered by his supervisors to, you know, lie and mark that ballot as coming in on time, right? And he went and signed an affidavit that this was happening, and then that opens up a police inquiry, and then suddenly he has reversed his story. So now he's not so sure that he was actually told to actually do this. That's basically what's the, you know, the too long didn't read in this news story. It's like, why is it that this guy, you know, if he's if this is an actual true legit story of, you know, a patriotic postal worker who's finding evidence of voter fraud, why is he then, like, changing his story and saying it didn't happen once the shit gets serious, right? Maybe it's because it's made up bullshit and you can actually go to prison for fabricating stories like this. You can actually go to prison yourself, you know, if you cause the police to open up an investigation and it turns up you made it up, that itself, you know, reporting a false crime is actually a crime. So maybe that's why all of a sudden that guy got cold feet. Right? There's another one. Another story that I found myself here. Georgia election worker forced into hiding over false claims he threw away a ballot. So basically, in Atlanta, right, there was a video supposedly of this guy who was an election worker throwing away a ballot. Except in real life, he didn't really throw away the ballot. I'll put all of the links to all of these things. All right, you know, this has too many ads on it. Let me just close this fucking thing. Anyway, that was The Hill. I'll put a link to all these things down in the bottom after the stream is done. But the story here is that somebody filmed him, right, throwing away what they thought was a ballot, and it wasn't a ballot. It was a piece of paper that was inside of the envelope with the ballot that had nothing to do with the ballot. And now this guy is getting death threats. So you remember how earlier in the stream we were talking about how there was a polling place that was like boarding up the windows and putting tape and paper over the windows so that people couldn't film them counting ballots? That's why. Because, you know, shit like this has a way of getting, you know, getting out of hand, and before you know it, guys are getting fucking death threats because somebody saw them throwing away a fucking napkin or something. Right? So that's why they, you know, because this shit's dangerous, right? Because people are fucking crazy. And, these election workers have their rights to privacy, and they have a right to not be threatened when they're doing their fucking jobs. So, there you go, folks. Anyway, that's why, this shit is dangerous, right? Moving on, okay. Here's another one. Let's see. Let's just make sure that there's not tons and tons of videos of all of this shit. Okay. This is from the Detroit Free Press. Video of ballot stuffing is not from a Flint polling place. It's from Russia. So here's another video that went around on Facebook and on Twitter, which supposedly showed Democrats stuffing the ballots and cheating in their election. Turns out it wasn't from Flint, Michigan. It was from another country completely. I'm sure you've probably all seen this video. So yeah, somebody posted that around on purpose. So you got to keep that in mind. Whoever posted that video on social media knew that it wasn't real. Like the first person to actually post that video knew that video wasn't real. They posted it on purpose anyway, right? Why did they do that? To create chaos and confusion, right? To undermine the, confidence in our elections, right? On purpose. So you gotta, keep this shit in mind. See, when you guys out there, like, because I know that, a couple of people who watch my streams buy into this shit, right? They buy into the conservative, like, conspiracy theories, okay? And you got to really think about these things before you just, consume it hook, line, and sinker, right? Like, if this is fake, why did somebody put that up there? What was the purpose behind it, I mean, did they just not know it was fake? Somebody told them, somebody dug up that video, had it on their hard drive or whatever, and did this on purpose in order to take advantage of you, ultimately. Ultimately what they're doing is they're exploiting you guys. Okay, so keep that in mind, folks. As we're going through all of this, keep that in mind. There's an actual disinformation campaign out there. We don't know, and I'm not saying that it's a foreign disinformation campaign. It most likely isn't. It most likely is something started on 4chan or some shit like that. Right. But that doesn't mean that, just because it's not the fucking KGB or whatever, or what are they called, the CCCP or some shit now, whatever they're called nowadays, just because it's not them doesn't mean that they don't have an agenda, and that their agenda isn't, doesn't exactly align to the, health and well-being of the United States. All right, so keep that shit in mind. Oh my god, car alarm, fuck you! Thank you, asshole. Okay, anyway. Another real famous one was the wagon of ballots that started, that was actually in the mainstream news and shit for a lot. Supposedly some people saw this wagon of ballots being pulled in, to be counted. Turned out it was camera equipment. That shit was funny. So yeah, all of these things, it's like, these are starting, and this kind of happens after every election, especially one that's contested like this. You start getting stories of, like, shenanigans, this and that, and it's like, yeah, okay, they should be investigated. All right. I'm not saying don't investigate them, because there actually might be some legs to these things. And it's not, oh wow, that eye is all fucked up. Hang on, this eye is not looking good at all. It should be more like this. Right. And that should be more like that. Okay. There we go. All right. Sorry. So I'm not saying don't investigate, reports of voter fraud. No, investigate them, right? Just all I'm saying is take this shit with a grain of salt when you get it from social media, right? Don't instantly believe everything you read in your Facebook feed or your Twitter feed, because people are lying to you out there, and they're lying to you on purpose for a reason. Right? Keep that, so just remember that shit. All right. Let's see. We've been going for an hour already? Wow. Jeez. You know, time flies when you got when you actually have material to cover, right? Versus just like making it up as you go along. When you actually have shit you need to talk about, it seems like you run out of time. Okay, so where does that kind of leave us? Well, I kind of want to talk a little bit about the aftermath now of the election. Donald Trump has still not conceded. That's bad news for him and bad news for us because of several reasons. The first off being that continuity of government. So the Trump people have basically refused to get the ball rolling on allowing the Biden transition team to get access to certain things they need, basically the logistics that guarantee a continuity of government. Things like, classified information, right? Keys and passwords and they're not even, from what I understand, not even allowed to actually talk to certain key members of the government yet until they get the sign off from the Trump people, and the transition can begin, right? And this is bad. This is very bad because what's going to end up happening is that basically the Biden people are going to come in and they're not going to be prepared. They're going to have to do all of this shit, because the reason why that this was a law was because in the past there would be no formal transition time, right? And administrations in the past would just come in from day one and not know what's going on, right? It's kind of like when you get a new job someplace, there's a good, couple of days where they're training you up. They take you around the place. They give you some time to learn the computer systems, for example, and learn the things you're working on and meet all the key people, and you have meetings to get yourself acclimated to stuff, right? And get you access and get you email accounts and passwords and et cetera, and here's the cloud drive where you store shit, blah 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 blah, that kind of thing, right? And they're basically not allowing that to happen. So there are some rumblings in left-wing circles that some people, of course, go 0 to 90 immediately and think that Donald Trump is planning a coup. And they point to this. They point to the fact that he recently fired some senior officials from the Pentagon. Mark Esper was the Secretary of Defense, fired him. And then a couple of people from Mark Esper's team, resigned, stuff like that. I don't think that's a problem. I don't think that's going to happen, because people are afraid, they're saying, okay, well, Trump's making moves to, he's making moves to, not leave office. And this might turn into a military coup or some shit, right? And that's why he's getting rid of the military. And apparently another reason is he's directing the Office of Management of Budget to prepare a budget proposal for 2021, right? Apparently that happened. And, of course, Donald Trump is not going to be president in 2021. So why the fuck are they working on a budget? Shit like that. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's at this point. I think that if they tried to, first off, I don't think the military is loyal enough to Donald Trump. Even if he does replace the Secretary of Defense with, a lackey, right? Not that Mark Esper wasn't already a lackey, but apparently Mark Esper, for example, refused to, deploy the military in order to, you know, rein in Black Lives Matter protesters. That's apparently a thing. Like, apparently Donald Trump wanted to use the military, right, to squash Black Lives Matter. And Mark Esper said no way, wouldn't go for it. And, you know, I think really that's the reason why he's getting fired. I think Donald Trump wanted to fire him already for that because he disobeyed, right? Because he rightfully, in my opinion, disobeyed Donald Trump. And I think he was just waiting until after the election to do it. I don't think this has anything to do with Donald Trump planning to, you know, put troops in the street on Inauguration Day and keep himself from being, you know, keep himself from losing office. That's ridiculous to even, you know, I don't think, because, you know, so he gets rid of the Secretary of Defense. Well, what about all of the generals, right, and other career military personnel who have been in the military for years and years, if not decades, who would have to, like, sign off on that, you know? Absolutely, there's no fucking way in hell. Now, if you start seeing purging generals and shit, that might be something to be afraid of. But I don't think it's gonna happen. Let's see. We need to put this horn over here like this. There we go. Might need to change that later. I'm not sure how well that looks, but that's okay. Good enough. Anyway, but I think another side effect of this is that it's essentially sabotaging the Biden campaign before, I mean, the Biden administration before it gets started. That's going to be another side effect. So you keep them from, you know, getting ready as much as possible. So when they come in day one, well, that means right off they can't hit the ground running. They have to spend some time doing all this shit that they, you know, getting acclimated and getting things ready, all the shit that they should be doing right now that the Trump people are preventing them, you know. So they'll have to spend like a good, you know, 6 weeks or some shit getting all this together. And then that gives, you know, the conservatives some ammunition to turn around and be like, what has he done? So, you know, a good measurement of a new administration is the first 100 days. So, you know, this prevents Joe Biden from accomplishing any significant, you know, or it doesn't prevent it, but it makes it harder for him to accomplish any significant policy changes or victories in the first 100 days, just to make him look bad. That's what I think was going on. That's what I think was happening right here. It's basically just, you know, political bullshittery in order to score some brownie points, right? You know, there was another thing that, like, apparently Mike Pompeo said in a speech. You know, like he said, like somebody asked him, "Are you working with the, you know, to ensure a smooth transition?" And then he said, like, there will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration, and he's like smirking. And I think people are reading more into that than, you know, is actually like there. I think Pompeo's just like joking, you know, smirking like an asshole. And I also think that he knows that it's over. You know, I don't think anybody in the Trump administration with a brain actually thinks that any of these, you know, court cases are going to do anything to change the outcome of the election, you know, because the lead now is insurmountable, you know, like, and I actually kind of mentioned this before. I'll just kind of go over this briefly, but because I mentioned this in my hot take video as well. Even if they were to say change the outcome in Philadelphia, for example, like let's say that there was a court case, right? And in Philadelphia, like they're ahead by like, you know, I mean, the last I checked, it was something like 20,000 votes or something. I think it's like way more now at this point. Right. But they did, the Republicans did win a court case to segregate votes that came in after a certain time, right, to be held off that for a future ruling. Well, they would have to, and if they were to actually invalidate all of those votes, it would be something like 500,000 votes that would be thrown out. And I don't think that there's any possible way that's ever going to happen. Right? I don't even think the Supreme Court would be ballsy enough to be like, okay, we're throwing out 500,000 votes and flipping the state of Michigan for Donald Trump. It's no, impossible, not possible, right? I mean, because if you look, I mean, 2000, Florida 2000 was much different. The margin of votes was like, the vote difference was something like 528, something like that. It was not very much, okay? It was enough to where all they weren't actually throwing any votes out in Florida. They were stopping the recount. So, it's a lot different than this case. And in Florida, basically, there was a recount occurring that if they would have kept recounting, right, using criteria that was established in a court, case for the hanging chads and stuff, then they would have found that, if it would have continued, they would have found more votes for Al Gore and he would have won. And what they did is they stopped the recount in that state. Well, here, it's not the same thing. It's like Donald Trump is down by tens of thousands of votes in all of these states, in Georgia, in Michigan, in Nevada, right? And in order for him to actually win, they would not only have to, they would have to throw out all of those votes, but not just in Michigan, not just in Nevada, but in all of those states, they would have to throw out. So it comes to, it's like 500,000 votes in all of these states, in Michigan, in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, in, in order for him to actually win, because even if they were to change one state, all the other states are still going to Biden. So it's not possible. There is no way, like, if they were to do that, that would be so ridiculous. And there's no legal basis for that. I mean, it would essentially be fascism at that point. If that were to happen, it would be like the most blatant kind of stolen election ever. And I don't even think the Republicans are ballsy enough to do that shit. So anyway, so I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about, now, I mean, does that mean that Donald Trump won't just like, what's he going to do? What, get the military to like fucking take the shit over? That's not going to happen either. I highly fucking doubt it. He would basically need a miracle at this point. He would need a machine to turn back time, right, at this point in order to win. So I don't think we're in any danger of this kind of thing. But, people on the left have been burned so much by American elections that they get afraid at everything. And especially seeing how the shit already happened once in 2000. They get afraid of this kind of stuff. And oh, he's going to steal the election. So basically any kind of like weird move that Donald Trump does right now is going to be interpreted as stealing the election. I don't think we have anything to worry about there. What I would be more afraid of is for his followers to act in a violent way, right? I would be more concerned with that. I'd be more concerned with, some MAGA fool going to a protest and opening fire in a mass shooting. There was already some guys that they caught going down to do that. I'm sure you guys all saw this story. Let me see, where is it? Blah 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 blah. One more thing before we move on to this though, because I do want to talk about voter fraud. One last thing. This actually came from a conversation I had with one of my viewers here who, is a Trump supporter and was talking about voter fraud and all that. If you have questions about voter fraud, this here is a PDF that you can get on the White House, .gov, and a sampling of election fraud cases from across the country, right? This actually comes from the Heritage Foundation, right? So if you want to see where they're getting their info, let's see. Are you guys seeing that? Oh, you can't see that, huh? Okay. That means I got to scroll down. So here we go. All right. So this actually comes from the Heritage Foundation. And the Trump White House likes their information so much that they've actually put it on the White House. So this is at This is being hosted at whitehouse.gov, right? So you can see here 1,071 proven cases of voter fraud, right? So let's kind of go to this Heritage Foundation, right? Here's our voter fraud. Let's go search the database, right? Here's our database. Now, it starts in 2020. Let's go to the last thing here, right? So basically begins 1982. So from 1982 to 2020, there's 1,000, right? Let me go ahead and turn this off. So that's 1,071 cases of voter fraud since 1982. So since I am a madman, what I did is I went to Wikipedia and I looked up the list of United States presidential candidates by number of votes received. Right, so these are the votes that each one of these candidates got. So John Kerry got 59 million votes. You know, Ronald Reagan got 54 million. Al Gore got 50 million. Blah 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 blah. Went and since I'm insane, I added all of these up, and this is not counting Biden and Trump yet. Added all these up, and the number I got was this. Right here. This is how many votes have been cast since 1982. 1,092,924,119. So 1,071 cases is this percentage of the total number of votes cast. So I don't even know what that is. How many zeros is this? It's 0.000000. So what, 6 zeros? I don't even know what that number is. I'm sure there's an English word for this number, but you can see it's not a problem. That's not enough to, change any elections, right? That's not 3 million, cases of illegal aliens voting in California to make Donald Trump lose the popular vote or whatever. That's not changing shit. Okay, that's not doing anything to change anything. Even if that were 10 times what the proven number of cases were, if that was, 100,000 votes instead of 1,071, that still wouldn't change anything. Okay, that still would barely be a problem, and it's kind of, so there you go. It's like, what's the real problem is with voter suppression, right? It's with things like kicking people off of the voter rolls. You know what? I need to move this. I can't see it because, the camera's in the way. The real problem we have with voting in this country is things like kicking people off voter rolls, because there's two people with the same name in the same county. And it's like, oh gee, and they also happen to be African American, so let's kick them off the voter rolls, like what happened in Georgia in 2016, right? That's the real thing, preventing people who have criminal records from voting, right? Doing stuff like limiting the number of drop-off boxes per county, like they did in Texas, like they did in Georgia, right? Getting the Postmaster General to slow down the fucking post office so that votes come in late. That's the real problem, okay? We don't have an epidemic of voter fraud. We have an epidemic of vote suppression, right? Of vote tampering, of, that kind of thing, right? Voter intimidation, right? That's what we really have to worry about in this country. So, anyway, last thing I want to talk about here, because I just thought this shit was funny. This has to do, so basically the Trump campaign has set up a hotline so that if you think, you have witnessed voter fraud, then you can call this hotline and, they'll go and they'll investigate it. And they keep having to change the number to their hotline because people keep calling them and trolling them and, you know, making fun of them and stuff, which I think is fucking hilarious. So here's one thing that I saw here, which I thought was really funny. This here is Gravity Falls creator Alex Hirsch calls voter fraud hotline, reports Hamburglar-Like theft in his characters' voices. So, if you have ever seen Gravity Falls, it's funny, you know. And here's the main guy from it. Hide articles, go away. Here's his tweet. And let me just make sure that we can hear this. I think we can. But check this out.
This is a hotline to report incidents of voter fraud.
Okay, yeah, I saw what I believe is a voter fraud situation.
Okay, please describe it for me.
So I saw a man. He walked into this building, and he was wearing black. He had a black hat, black mask, a striped shirt, and a red tie. And I believe there were hamburgers in his bag. And he was saying "robble, robble" as he was exiting the building, like a burglar. You know, I think he's probably Antifa. Can I speak to Rudy Giuliani?
Oh my god, that's masterful. I think he's probably Antifa. Oh my fucking god, that's so... Oh my god. Genius. Absolute genius. Oh, who's texting me? People are texting me. Alright. Damn it, stop texting me. Okay, hey, I see we got some more people. Dinah Cat loves me. How's it going? Anyway, yeah, so let's move on, because, I don't know, that shit was hilarious. What time is it? Shit, it's almost 3? Jesus Christ. Okay. I started this at 1:30. Let's go for a little while longer. So, yeah, anyway, that's enough about voter fraud. Just keep in mind, folks, that, you know, like I said before, there's a reason why you're seeing all this misinformation out there, right? And it's basically to undermine the election. That's what it is. That's the whole point behind all of this, is to make, you know, faith in American elections go down, so that when Republicans lose, people don't accept the results. That's what it is. That's what it is. So, you know, so the Republican Party is kind of facing, they've got a serious problem, right? They have not won the popular vote in 8 of the last 9 elections, right? The last time the Republicans won the popular vote was, I mean, and this is counting midterm elections as well, okay? So not just presidential elections, you know. But they didn't win it with Bush. They didn't win it with, you know, Trump in the first, you know. They didn't win it with either one of, you know, Mitt Romney or you know, the challengers to Obama, right? So they're not, and it's, you know, yeah, the number of votes goes up every year, but it's consistently trailing behind, at least in the popular vote totals, what you're getting in for Democrats, right? And the reason why is because they've gone full steam ahead and doubled down with their core demographic, which is uneducated white men between the ages of 35 to 65. That's their biggest demographic that votes Republican, right? So the more educated you are, the more likely you are to actually, you know, vote Democrat, right? The more likely you are to believe in things like gun control, to support policies like universal health care, things like that. And the more likely you are to vote Democrat, right? The more likely you are to also make more money. Keep that in mind. You know, and it kind of, you know, so basically, 52% of college graduates, are Democrats versus 40%, right? And the higher education you get there, the more that gap widens. So for postgraduates, people who have master's degrees or doctorates, things like that, that gap is 56% versus 36%. So 56% of postgraduates are Democrats versus 36% Republican, right? So that's, so this is all due to changing racial demographics in the United States, stuff like that, right? And instead of, reaching out to, the voters that are up and coming, I think people like Latinos especially, although Donald Trump actually did really well with Latinos in this last election in Florida, right? He actually did really well there. But still, generally, Republicans don't really reach out to those people very much, Donald Trump has had a very anti-Latino administration, I mean, that's how he started his fucking, started his campaign in 2016, Mexico sending us rapists and murderers, and I want to build a wall to keep them out, and, I'm going to make Mexico pay for it, and all of this stuff, right? Saying shit to suburban mothers and stuff. I'm protecting your communities. I'm keeping the fucking brown people out. This is basically what they're basing their campaigns on, their messaging on. So instead of trying to appeal to those voters, because, a lot of Latinos are actually very conservative. I don't know if you guys knew that. Latinos as a demographic are very religious, mostly. They're also somewhat conservative when it comes to things like, family values and marriage, and that kind of thing, right? Gender roles, that sort of shit, right? So Latinos are actually, kind of natural allies to them, but instead of appealing to those people, they've doubled down with the angry, uneducated white men. Right. And that demographic is shrinking. So I would expect in future elections for there to be some reach out to Latinos from the Republicans. And they're going to have to if they want to survive. And that kind of leads them with a conundrum. Because if they do that, they're going to lose their other base, right? They're going to lose the angry, uneducated white men if they start reaching out to Latinos, right? So far, instead of actually doing that, instead of reaching out, what they've been doing is their strategy has just basically been suppressing the vote, right? And you'll notice that you only get these guys who say shit like, oh, the sides are both the same. You only get those guys once elections come around. Right. During the whole other 3 years of Trump's administration, all of those people are completely silent. Donald Trump is doing this and that, and he's making America great again, blah, 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 blah. And then once the election comes around, you get a flurry of these assholes all over the place in social media and on Reddit and things like that, YouTube videos. Oh, they're all the same. There's no difference between the Democrats and Republicans. They're all just here to screw you. And it's like, no, man, that's bullshit. I think this election, if anything, maybe you could have said that during 2004, Bush versus Kerry or something like that. This election, no. There's a massive difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Right? A massive fucking difference. And here's the thing is that they're both establishment. Joe Biden is the establishment, right? He's not, somebody like Rashida Tlaib or AOC or something who's going to or Bernie Sanders who's going to go in and disrupt the, disrupt the fucking government corporate alliance. Right. No, he's definitely, he's basically Obama 2.0, right? And it's like, even then, major difference in, here's an establishment guy that actually, like, knows what he's doing, right? Versus an establishment guy who just doesn't give a fuck and uses the presidency to enrich himself. That was the major difference here. And I think people saw that. People finally, more than anything, more than all of the weird, like, personal problems Donald Trump has with his weird psychology and the fact that he has this massive fucking ego and can never be wrong about anything. And, more than all of that bullshit, I think what, really turned people off of Donald Trump was the fact that he just doesn't know what he's doing. And he never seemed to actually bother learning about, how to do the job. He didn't really seem interested in learning how to be president. What it takes to actually, like, do this job effectively, right? There's been reports since day one of how he doesn't like reading, right? And they would bring him daily briefings, and he would have to, like, he'd like get his daily briefings with lots of pictures and charts and things in them, and bullet points and charts and all that shit. Even George W. Bush used to read his daily briefings, right? Excuse me, right? Apparently Donald Trump doesn't even fucking do that. And I think that's what turned people off the most from Trump, was the fact that he just, like, he didn't rise to the occasion. And the biggest evidence of him not rising to the occasion is 230 people dead from, the pandemic that didn't have to die. I think that's more than anything else. I think if we didn't have this pandemic, he probably would have got reelected, So I guess we've kind of, like, moved into the subject of the post-mortem on what went wrong with the Trump campaign here. Because I noticed it was a lot different this time around than in 2016. 2016, he had a lot more energy. You notice, I think one thing that they weren't planning for was that also in 2016, he was this very sort of hopeful figure. People had hope in him, right? And the media capitalized on that because he also brought in the ratings. So you would get things like CNN, for example. CNN would show, this looks like shit. That looks horrible. Doesn't that look horrible? I'm, like, almost tempted to start this over. That looks bad. But this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. We're just going to erase this, right? And since this is all ink, I am just going to get my correction tape and just go over that. And then we'll come back to this section later, because I do not like how that looks. That looks like some kind of weird, like, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so we're just going to, like, remove all of this. So yeah, anyway, yeah, the media used to do shit like CNN back in 2016 would do stuff like they'd cut to a Trump campaign and he wouldn't even be talking yet, and they would just, like, focus in on his empty podium. And that would be on CNN, and then you'd turn on CNN and there'd be an empty podium and it would be there for 20 minutes. Right? And there would just be people talking over, oh, what's Donald Trump going to say next? Right? You didn't see shit like that this time around. Okay. What was it? Like, they said he got something like $2 billion in free, free media exposure because of that kind of thing in 2016. He didn't get $2 billion of free media exposure this time. Right? I think that had a major part in him winning in 2016, right? Like a seriously major part, because people will pretty much vote for whatever they fucking see on TV. Right? You gotta remember that shit, you know. The average voter is not very savvy. And I'm not saying this to like insult Trump voters. It's true, you know. Average person just is not politically savvy at all, right? And most people, you know, especially when you see a guy like Donald Trump who is like on The Apprentice and he's a celebrity and you've heard his name for years and years and years, and he seems like a straight shooter when you like hear him talking and stuff like that, and you go, oh, well, maybe he actually will drain the swamp, you know, maybe he actually will bring jobs back. And it's like, well, Hillary Clinton wasn't saying any of that shit, you know. She wasn't like sitting there going, oh, I'm going to bring back the jobs and I'm going to stop, like, you know, companies from outsourcing things like that, and I'm gonna save your job. And you know, for most people out there, although the racism and the sexism and shit isn't a deal breaker, right? Especially when it comes to Trump's base, uneducated white men, right? They don't give a shit about all of that. You know, some of them, that even fucking attracted them to it. I mean, come on, let's be real here, you know. And I know that a lot of Trump supporters out there get angry whenever you bring this shit up, but an awful lot of his fucking base definitely seem to be motivated by racism. You know, here's a thing that came in today about the Proud Boys. So now that the Proud Boys have, you know, now that Donald Trump has lost the election, right? Let me just turn on this, my left monitor here. Right, now that the Proud Boys have lost the election, or the Trump has lost the election. Shut up. Get out of here. Fuck you, Newsweek. Okay. They've decided to go full mask off. So Proud Boys Infighting sees leading member form breakaway group to fight white genocide. So let's just read a little bit of this article. Go away. How come this is not letting me scroll down? Oh my god, are you fucking serious? What is this shit? Thank you. Alright, see, if I turn on the ad blocker, then it just won't let me, like, open this at all. So, anyway, here we go. Infighting is broken out between two leading members of the Proud Boys group, with one announcing he will be taking control of the far-right organization to address white genocide and the failures of multiculturalism. White nationalist Kyle Chapman, who set up the tactical defense arm of the Proud Boys, the Fraternal Order of Alt Knights, for fuck's sake, has criticized the group's chairman Enrico Tarrio while announcing a so-called rebranding of the organization. Writing on encrypted messaging app Telegram, Chapman used racial slurs against Tarrio and other neo-Nazi rhetoric while announcing that the grifting leaders had been disposed and the group would be renamed the Proud Goys. Oh, man. Okay. Proud Goys. Alright. Due to the recent failure of Proud Boy chairman Enrique Tarrio to conduct himself with honor and courage on the battlefield, it has been decided that I, Kyle Chapman, reassume my post as president of Proud Boys effective immediately. Chapman wrote, our logo will forthwith be changed to reflect the core beliefs of Proud Boy members. We will no longer cuck to the left by appointing token Negroes as our leaders. We will no longer allow homosexuals or other undesirables into our ranks. We will confront the Zionist criminals who wish to destroy our civilization. We recognize that the West was built by a white race alone, and we owe nothing to any other race. So that's what's happening with the Proud Boys. Right. They've gone full mask off and have just, like, completely lost their fucking minds and are not even pretending anymore to not be filled with racist shitbags. Because, you know, the thing with the Proud Boys is that their whole thing is that, well, we have non-white members. So, you know, plausible deniability. And it's like, oh, well, there you go. Now there's this... Apparently, a guy who was a former chairman is now starting his own offshoot group of it. I really, really hope that one day the Proud Boys and the Proud Goys meet up on the battlefield and murder each other. You know, I love it when these guys eat their own. That's always awesome. Anyway, but that's what's going on now. You know, the Trump supporters and shit, are kind of like losing their minds a little bit, you know. Let's see, this needs to be bigger, so this has to be thicker. Somewhere around like that. Roughly like that. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. You know, dragons are weird looking anyway. So, yeah, man. Anyway, getting back to the post-mortem for the Trump campaign. Why did they lose this time? They didn't have a message that appealed to people, right? The entire, because they did. You could say in 2016 they did have a message. This time they didn't. Their entire thing this time was all about, basically just, I guess, what am I trying to say here? Their entire thing was all about culture war stuff. Fighting Antifa, shit like that. Keeping the Confederate statues up, right? Donald Trump doing stuff like putting federal officers on the street to defend fucking Confederate statues, right? Keep that in mind. So he didn't have any of that populist rhetoric this time around. He didn't, he wasn't out there saying, I'm going to save your jobs, I'm going to do all this. And in the meantime, hundreds of thousands of people are dying of a pandemic, and he's not doing anything to stop it. Joe Biden had more of a populist message than he had. We're going to get this virus under control. We're going to get your jobs back, right? We're going to, basically do all the shit that the Trump people are not doing. That's what Joe Biden was saying. So it's like, who appealed more, right? So, I think, because the consensus is that, well, this was like a referendum on Trump, right? And yeah, maybe people were pissed off enough at him that, they wanted this to end. They just wanted to get rid of Donald Trump, right? Maybe that's true. But I think we're going to find that a lot of people are putting hope in Biden for things, and I think these people might be a little disappointed, right, as time goes on, because he's not that type of transformative figure. You know what? I don't like that at all. I almost think I think I do want to start this over. That kind of looks shitty, doesn't it? I don't know. You know what? I'm gonna move on to a different portion of this. Let's draw this head down here. I think maybe I might even just clip that out or something like that, because it doesn't look right, doesn't it? It looks kind of weird. So let's just move on. Let's move on to this head down here. Okay. So yeah. So what's gonna happen to these people, right? Let's kind of let's see how much time we got. Shit, it's been an hour 30 minutes already. What's gonna happen to these people, the Trump people? Well, MAGA, right? They're not gonna go away, I don't think. I think they may splinter a little bit. I think QAnon and that branch is already kind of starting to splinter and is being reabsorbed back into the wider conspiracy theory, movement, right? Hey, Inshoma, what's going on, dude? How you doing? So I think, yeah, I think QAnon may rebrand itself into something else, right? I think the white supremacist guys and all that are just going to get more intense, because now it's like, now they're going to be in the minority again, right? But, one thing that we got to remember, though, is that these guys are not all fringe people. These are actual normal Republicans, right? Something like, I forget the actual number, but it was something like 70% of Republicans, believe Q has something to it, somewhere around there. It was like a ridiculously huge number. It was like 70 or 75% of Republicans actually think that QAnon is has some sort of validity, right? And it's down to the point where some of the candidates who were just elected to, the House, some of the House members have made statements, kind of throwing a bone to QAnon members, right? So we're actually seeing some of these people in real government, people that think there's a worldwide conspiracy to rape and cannibalize children are now in the United States House. This is, the insane people running the asylum. Right? That's true shit. And it's because, the Republican Party really, why do they believe shit like this? Why do Republicans and conservatives fall for these conspiracy theories so much? Well, it's because culturally they're predisposed. They are. Conservatives are culturally predisposed to believing in conspiracy theories, right? Because all they have to do is, validate their core beliefs, and they'll fucking jump on board with it. That's exactly what happened, QAnon, when it first began, was not a conservative thing. It had nothing. It wasn't just conservatives or even Trump supporters. It started off with basically in 4chan is where QAnon started, right? It started in 4chan, and I guess they were Trump supporters, essentially. But it kind of grew out of the whole it grew out of the Pizzagate thing, and the idea was that, okay, well, here's a guy named Q who is inside of Trump's inner circle, and it was this dude who just started posting weird shit to 4chan, and it would just be these cryptic messages, and other people just took it and ran with it. And there's people who suspect they might know who the identity of the original Q is, but nobody knows if it was all him or if there were more than one person, because 4chan is also anonymous. Anybody can go on 4chan and post anything they want, and there really is no way of tracking people down, right? Finding out if they're legit or not. So it's it could have been 100 different trolls posting stuff that just people believed, and there's lots of theories, whether it's it's Russian disinformation or it's just teenagers fucking with people, whatever. Kind of doesn't matter, because at this point it's taken on a life of its own. Right. And the wider conservative, movement out there has adopted QAnon, right? Because it appeals, to their sense of, the conservatives like to believe that they're always the underdogs, even though in real life they actually run everything, right? So, and why? Why is it, when I said, okay, getting back to what I said before, I said conservatives were culturally predisposed to believing in conspiracy theories. Well, basically, the more religious you are, the more likely you are to believe in magical thinking, right? And that's a core component of conspiracy theories. So, something 77% of evangelical Protestants, for example, believe that abortion should be illegal in all cases. These are these are the conservatives, right? Highly religious people. 41% of conservatives believe that everybody in their community, they would prefer to live in a community where everyone is just like them. Everybody believes in the exact same thing, stuff like that. So it's very it's a culture of closed-mindedness. It's a very authoritarian culture. You believe in a higher power that does Christianity is not a democracy, right? You don't have a choice on what God's plan is for you, shit like that. You do what you're told, you know. That kind of brings me to it. Folks, I actually really, really, really have to go to the bathroom. Like bad. I see there's some people watching, so thanks you guys for watching. Thanks Dynacat. Thanks Raph. I'm gonna go. I have to do this. If I don't, I'm gonna crap my pants. So I will be back here in 5 minutes. Sorry guys, have to take a quick break. Okay, we're back. Wow, I see that there's still people watching. Well, sorry. Thank you for sticking around while I went on my bathroom break. I imagine that happens all the time when people are streaming, right? Sorry, folks. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate that. Why don't we go ahead and just move to the comments here. I had a couple of other things that I wanted to go over, but fuck it, I'm tired. Let's go to our comments because I see that we got some people commenting. Still got a couple of people watching. That's cool. Thanks for sticking around, guys. All right, let's see. Let's start with Bad 66 Chevelles. Are you happy Biden won? Yes. Yes, I am. I am very happy. Now, like I said before, I would have been way happier if we would have got an actual progressive in there, right? But I think even Joe Biden will, just having him as president, he'll do a much better job than Donald Trump will, obviously. And I think, as far as the effects of actual, federal policy on real people's lives will be a lot better with Biden as president. First thing is, in general, people, the economy does better when a Democrat is in office, right? That's just, borne out by history. Stock market goes up, more jobs tend to be created. The economy is a lot more stable, that kind of thing. And especially now, since we need to not only, fix those things, but we have to undo 4 years of Donald Trump. First thing that he should do day one, if I was Joe Biden, is end the trade wars, right? Get rid of the tariffs, shit like that. Get the economy going again, get some trade going, and there's going to have to be, this period of adjustment where he's going to basically just be undoing the damage that, Trump's incredibly bad leadership has nailed on people. And, it's not going to be easy. And get ready for Joe Biden to be blamed, right, for all of the shit that is happening to Donald Trump, that's happening in America right now because of Donald Trump. Get ready for Joe Biden to be blamed for all of that. Right. Everything from watch what's going to happen. You know how Fox never talks about the actual number of people who have died from the pandemic? They're going to start talking about it now. Right. That's going to become a daily thing, So, and Fox never talks about how many how many jobs have been lost since the lockdown started and all that. They're going to start talking about that now too. And that's all going to be Joe Biden's fault. Just watch. But, so, he's going to have a hard time. But I think, the fact that we just have someone who's halfway competent is better than what we have now. Apparently, right now, Donald Trump isn't even working. He's not even doing his job as president. He's just, still sulking from his election loss. And, no one has seen him. He hasn't made a public appearance in, days. He's, tweeted once, right? Since, last Friday, which is, unprecedented for him. Usually Donald Trump tweets, 50 times a fucking hour. So it's, just getting a guy in there who will actually read his daily reports and make, informed decisions and not golf 5,000 times a fucking week is going to be better for the country. So, let alone if any actual policies get pushed through. Right. Anyway, okay, Bad 66 Chevelles. Do you think Biden will run again in 2024? No. No, I don't. Reason being, Joe Biden is 77. So, in 2024, he's going to be 81 years old. And that wouldn't be the oldest president. I think Ronald Reagan was 84 or something like that when he left office. But, once you get up there, man, shit starts happening to your body. You know what I mean? And I very well think there may be a good chance that by the time 2024 rolls around, Joe Biden is just like, handing the reins over to Kamala Harris. I think Kamala Harris is going to run in 2024, and who knows if she'll win or lose. I mean, it's too early to say at this point. But yeah, I think Biden's going to be a one-termer by choice, just for health reasons in general. If he was, even 4 years younger, I think he'd probably go for the full 8 years. So, let's see. Dinah Cat loves me. I could have imagined it, but I think Biden pledged to serve only one term. Yeah, that's what I think. Dinah Cat loves me. Did you hear about the Million MAGA March that's being organized? No, I haven't heard about that. They got a march on Washington. That's going to be freaky, but also potentially a great source for hilarity. Right? Yeah, like I think a lot of these guys are not going to be able to handle not being in charge. The fact that because now they're going, like I said before, like conservatives always like to pretend that they're the underdog, and in real life they're not. In real life conservatives are the establishment, especially in this country. The majority of states have conservative governors and conservative legislators. The president's conservative, right? Stuff like that. They like to pretend that they're being held down by, unseen forces of this or that or whatever. But in real life, they're the ones, it's basically their policies, which is what the country is being run by right now. So it's going to be hard to see, like, I don't understand the rationalization. Like, what the fuck are these people marching for? Like, they have control of fucking everything. Right? So I don't know. It's going to be, I just think it's probably, wow, the million MAGA march. Maybe that's just the last gasp before these people like fucking fade away, or like transform into some kind of like, I don't know, underground redneck army or some shit. Who knows? I'll have to look that up though. Thanks for dropping me giving me a heads up on that. I don't see how it's possible to be smart. Dynacat loves me. How it's possibly smart enough to earn a post-grad degree and remain a Republican. Yeah, well, neither do I. So maybe that's why only 36% of people with post-grad degrees are Republicans. Yeah. Dynacat, maybe I attribute more of my politics to education than it deserves. It has a lot to do with experience too. No, I mean, it certainly seems to bear out that, yeah, the more educated you are, the less conservative you become, the less Republican you become, at the very least. You may be conservative in, other ways, but you doesn't seem like you voted when you get more educated. So there you go. And, that most likely has a lot to do with why Republicans don't like public education so much as well. That seems to be, Republicans most definitely are always attacking public education. Maybe it's because they know that the more educated someone is, the less likely they are to vote Republican. I wouldn't put it past, wouldn't put it past that. There most definitely is a culture of I guess, expert fear, phobia of experts on the right. They tend to not believe people with degrees, scientists and shit like that, right? And economics majors, and that kind of thing. They tend to, the elites. There's this culture of, elite academics are all part of some conspiracy, left-wing conspiracy or whatnot. And it's all, it's all just some, like, plan put up by George Soros or whatever to make us live in hobbit homes and, and trick our children into becoming, non-gender binary freaks or some shit like that. And it's definitely like a thing on the right wing to like, slander academics in that kind of way. So, let's see. Inshoma, what's up, Raph? Hispanics in America also suffer from authoritarian mindsets, which ties back into their preference for conservative politics and religion. I was honestly shocked how many Latinos in my city wanted Trump to deport all the illegals while totally lacking of self-awareness as some were illegal themselves. A similar situation with my sister-in-law's mother, who celebrated the deportation of camps despite her own Japanese folks having been sent to the World War II camps in the 40s. Yeah, man, for sure. I guess it comes down to othering people, right? Like if this is happening to somebody else, then it's not my problem, And for sure. I mean, even like we said, like for example, we were talking about the Proud Boys earlier, and they have non-white members in their group, like, and even though it's like now they're splintering off, the white supremacist wing is splintering off and becoming its own thing, right? And it's sort of like, how would you, like, me or anyone who's not white, why would they support a group with ties to white supremacists like that? You know what I mean? It's kind of like in during the Holocaust, like I saw this movie during the Holocaust about certain people who were in concentration camps who were given more freedom than others, and they would do things like be in charge of shaving people's hair off or whatever, getting rid or burying the dead bodies or that kind of thing, right? And it was a movie about apparently there was only one concentration camp during the Holocaust that a revolt started, and the guys at this camp like sabotaged it and blew up the boiler, which caused damage to the room, and eventually they were all caught and executed, the ones that didn't die in the attack, right? And apparently these guys, yeah, so they were in charge of, like, there was one group that was in charge of shaving people's hair off, and then there was another group that was in charge of taking everybody's valuables and sorting them and that kind of thing. And these guys got better food than everyone else. They actually got to go through the people's valuables and keep things, keep watches and gold and that kind of thing. And they had, access to food and alcohol and et cetera, et cetera. And it's sort of like, well, you think, like, why would anybody, and they were well aware that these camps were, murder camps, right? They were well aware that people were being brought to these camps to be murdered, and they went along with it anyway. And, I think David Arquette is in it. I have to look up the name of this movie. It was actually really good. It was really good because the main character, I think it was David Arquette, was like, agonizing over all this stuff, over like, am I a traitor to my own people, that kind of thing. And apparently this was based on a true story. And these guys would do things like even go as far as to sew swastikas into their clothes, because they weren't actually Nazis, but they identified with their oppressors so much, and they just had, and their situation was just a little bit better than the other people who were in the camps, being worked to death and then systematically exterminated. They just had it a little bit better. And it's that sort of mentality, like, oh, well, I'm not like them. Like you're saying, okay, yeah, you have Latinos who are supporting deportation of other Latinos, right? I'm not like these guys. Those guys are giving me a bad name. Shit like that, right? And it's like that kind of Stockholm syndrome that, that kidnappers begin to identify with their kidnappers. You know what I mean? Like people kidnap victims begin to identify with their kidnappers, shit like that. But kind of like on a more, a wider societal level. And so yeah, I mean, you got to remember, it's not just white people who are conservative, right? There's plenty of conservative Latinos, there's plenty of conservative black people. Apparently Donald Trump actually got a little bit of people to vote for him of color. Some black people voted for him, more than in 2016 at least. And to you or I, that might sound incredible because, we see the racism for what it is. We see the racism, we see the fucking, how he's just like dividing people based on, racial and cultural lines, right? But, some people don't see it that way. So I guess really it should be up to us to reach out to these kinds of people, right? And, try to get them to see what's actually going on here. Okay? Seriously, I mean, just like in that one article about the Proud Boys, it's like, okay, they're starting to go mask off now. Maybe now all those guys that joined the Proud Boys and for the last 4 or 5 years have been telling us all, oh, they're not a racist organization, see? I'm not white and I'm in it. Maybe now they'll actually like grow a brain and see what's actually fucking happening. Anyway, okay, Dynacat. A lot of the Cubans in Florida also fled Castro because they were in pro-Batista, who was a fascist dictator. They are not particularly in favor of democracy. Yeah, that's true. A lot of the Latinos that voted for Trump in Florida were Cubans. And Cuban Americans tend to be very, very conservative, very anti-socialism. And I think that's one of the reasons actually why the Democrats have not embraced people like Bernie Sanders as much as we would like. Somebody like Bernie Sanders who wears the title socialist proudly, who doesn't back away from it. Even though Bernie Sanders will come out and he'll be like, well, I'm a democratic socialist, I'm not a socialist. You know what I mean? But just having that word, turns people like this off. And I think the Democratic Party, as an organization, that's one of the reasons why, because they don't want to lose this key dynamic, this key demographic in Cuba. They don't want to lose that because Florida, Jesus Christ, sorry. They don't want to lose this key demographic in Florida. There we go, sorry. Because they're a very important swing state, right? That's why. So that's why, they want to appeal to these guys, right? So I think that was, part of the reason why the Trump people made some inroads with these people in this election, because they successfully painted Joe Biden and just Democrats in general as socialists. Whether that has anything to do with his actual policies is probably, that's not true at all. It probably has more to do with them framing Black Lives Matter and the riots and things that are happening in protests and all that stuff. It has more to do with them framing those as socialists. Being planned by some kind of fucking like evil socialist conspiracy, right? So, that's definitely a thing you see in right-wing circles. Trying to like say that like Black Lives Matter and all that is all in cahoots with the Democrats and all this other shit. They're all the same, and Joe Biden is a socialist and he's going to allow these people to fucking run rampant over the country, etc., etc., etc. And if you actually fled socialists and were in support of a fascist like Batista, that makes perfect fucking sense that you would vote for the fascist, wouldn't ya? So yeah, I agree with you there, Dynacat. And Shoma, do you believe Biden will suffer a future fate similar to poor Jimmy Carter, spend 4 years cleaning up after his predecessor and not getting anything significant done in his first term because of it? Yes. Yes, I think Biden's first 4 years is specifically going to be enveloped, I guess, concentrated on cleaning up messes from Donald Trump. You know, things like trying to, he might. I don't think that he'll actually manage to do most of it. A lot of those ships have sailed. A lot of the damages have been done. Things like the Iran deal, that's over with. It's over now. If they'd have to start over from the beginning. Had a perfectly good deal to prevent Iran from pursuing nuclear weapons. Donald Trump threw that shit out the window. So it's not like Joe Biden can just come back and be like, oh, hey, can we just get a do-over and just go back to where we were? And you guys stop trying to build a nuclear weapon. Now, no, that's not going to happen. That was a deal that, like 6 countries were involved in. That was negotiated over the course of like 3 years. Right? It's not going to just suddenly jump back into it. Highly, highly doubt that. Another example is things like there was a deal between the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK to share intelligence that for decades, ever since World War II, those 4 countries would share intelligence with each other. That ended as well because those other countries no longer trusted Donald Trump to not share this intelligence with Russia. Right? That's true shit. That's over with now. That's one thing that we should concentrate on, repairing that relationship. And I highly doubt those countries are just going to allow us back into the fold now that Donald Trump isn't there. I think that's going to take years and years of negotiation to put us back to where we were. Right? And so all kinds of shit like that. Now there's certain things that Joe Biden said he's going to do. Like he said he's going to join the Paris Accord. That'd be great. But a lot of these things he's not going to be able to just jump back into it and put us back to where we were before Trump came along. A lot of these things are going to be, problems that are going to take longer than 4 years to fix. And I really think that probably by the end of his 4 years, most of the shit's not going to be done, and people are going to blame him for it. Especially when you have Mitch McConnell obstructing in Congress. He's not going to be able to pass any significant legislation. Not really. I would be surprised if he even manages to pass a budget in 4 years. I mean, maybe if they take back the Senate in 2022, in the midterms, but that's looking unlikely as well. So, but you know what? Even with all the obstruction and all of that, we are still better off that Donald Trump is not president anymore. Right? Seriously, I would rather have the government do nothing and be in deadlock than allow Donald Trump free reign to destroy everything. So that would still be a positive thing. And I think we actually will see some movement when it comes to, like, say, handling the pandemic and stuff like that. I actually do think we will see some funds get through, because, for example, because if we don't, then we're going to face complete, total economic collapse and basically a Great Depression. That's coming. If we don't get some kind of stimulus going, if we're not already in a Great Depression, there will be one if we don't get some kind of stimulus spending, if we don't get money for the states to keep unemployment going, if we don't get some small business relief, right? And not even the Republicans are going to go for that shit because it'll hit their states harder. It already is hitting their states harder. If you live in California, something like that, there's more relief here. There are more programs in blue states like California in order to help you if you know, get kicked out of your house or you end up on welfare, shit like that. There's more, there are more options for you, you know. I mean, not enough in my opinion, but there are more than say Texas, right? Something like that. So I think conservative Republican senators and House members from around the country are going to put the pressure on Mitch McConnell in order to pass some fucking stimulus. So I don't know. And then, you know, there was that news today of vaccine. I didn't really read the whole thing, but even though that probably won't be ready until sometime in the middle of next year, that's promising. Maybe the fucking pandemic will finally end. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Jesus Christ. Anyway, Dynacat, Million MAGA March is supposed to be in DC, November 14th. Shit, 3 days from now? They don't have a permit yet. Okay, well, I don't know. That's I'll have to check that out. Thanks for letting me know. Last one. Speaking of Florida, I think Trump or his minions stole it by stealing those missing 300,000 ballots. You know, I was reading about that, and the jury's kind of still out on that, whether or not there actually are 300,000 ballots missing. It has something to do with the post office claiming to be mailing things slower than they actually were, right? In order to make themselves look better, because apparently the DeJoy is under a court order now in order to, you know, in order to get the ballots out on time, that kind of thing. And so he was like purposely like lying about how fast they were delivering stuff, so when in real life the real life numbers came in and made them look better. So I'm still kind of researching that one. I don't really know how you know, the story with that, so I can't really comment on it. I can say, however, though, that it is for certain some ballots have been missing, right? There have been plenty of stories in the past couple of months of bags of mail going missing, ending up in the trash. For certain, some of the ballots are going to are coming in after the count stopped. That's going to happen. So we will probably not ever really know what that effect is going to be. How many ballots didn't get counted because either they were late, they came in late, they came in, you know, after the date, they just got lost, straight up lost, you know, processing somewhere because of Donald Trump and DeJoy monkeying with the post office, right? The thing that really, I think this kind of backfired on them, because first off, it didn't work, which is great. Secondly, they could have shot themselves in the foot here, because some of those ballots may have been Republican ballots. Right? A lot of old people vote Republican, right? And maybe some of those people decided, hey, you know, it's too risky. You know, I'm in my 70s or some shit for me to go. It's too risky for me to go stand in line for 3 hours to go vote. So maybe I'll just send it in this time. And there could have been a significant number of people in, you know, Nevada, for example, or Georgia or something, that decided to vote by mail, and ultimately, you know, so that might actually be, you know, once they're all done with the count and all that stuff, and if they bother to count any of the votes that come in after the shutoff, you know, maybe some other independent organization might do that just to see what those ballots were, right? And it could very well turn out that, you know, the Republicans and the Trump people shot themselves in the foot this time by fucking with the post office. And it's like, well, that's what they deserve, man. I don't know. Okay, well, it's been about 2 hours. I think I'm going to end this. Sorry for leaving in the middle of the stream there, folks. I hope you guys understand. Thank you so much. Thanks for hanging around, too. I saw that not all the viewers went away once I went to go take a dump. Thank you for hanging out and waiting while I took care of while I shook hands with the governor there. Anyway, here's some dragons. Yeah, I think I'm gonna start this over. This didn't really turn out how I thought. I don't like this. I like this. This actually looks okay right here. This Chinese dragon. That actually is turning out alright. This dragon, not so much. Kind of shitty. I think I'm just going to clip this one out and put it on another one and start over, because this is not happening here for me, Bad shows. Will you be back later on tonight? I don't know. Should I do another one? We'll see how it goes. We'll see. I have to do some stuff. I'm only on right now because I actually had today off. Because it's Veterans Day, so I said fuck it, I'll just do a stream. Maybe I'll do it later on tonight for an hour. Maybe not a 2-hour live stream, but if I do it, it'll be probably around 8 o'clock or 8:30. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll clean this up a little bit and we can redraw this first ugly dragon. Plus he has an underbite. Look at his underbite. It goes way out. Yeah, that didn't turn out well at all. Anyway, so yeah, guys, thank you, Bad Chevelles and Dynacat and Inshoma, you guys, for hanging out with me. I'm gonna go ahead and end this because it's actually getting a little late in the day and there's a couple things I gotta do, But thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. Thank you for hanging out while I took a break right in the middle of the stream. I promise not to do that again. And before I go, I'll just real quick do my usual ending thing. If you like what I do and you want to see more, you can join me. I have a Patreon. It's hawanja.com and Patreon. If you don't want to join Patreon, you can buy something from my Etsy store. So I got an Etsy store here. It's etsy.com, Hawanja, and I sell prints. Let's let the guy on the bike drive by real fast. I sell prints. These are all Lovecraft characters and things like that. Here's an example of one of my prints here. So if you like what I do and you want to support me and you don't want to join Patreon, you can buy something here and this will support me. And I also have a webcomic at hawanja.com. Well, actually, I have a DeviantArt page. So if you want to see more of my artwork, comics, things like that, join me on DeviantArt, And then I actually have a webcomic that I have been updating pretty frequently, actually. Mostly regularly. Mostly about once a week. So this is my webcomic. It has ninjas and stuff in it. And then I also have one more thing. This is my other YouTube channel. So I do video game reviews and toy unboxings and talk about movies and stuff like that. So if you want to see non-political content from me, check me out on UCD videos. So that's all I got, folks. Thank you once again. Thank you, Raph. Thank you, Bad 66 Chevelles. Thank you, Dynacat Loves Me, and everybody else who stopped in today. Yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I'll stream again tonight for an hour or something like that. So if I'm not on by 8:30, then I'm probably not going to do it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how I'm feeling. Anyway, adios, guys. I'm out of here.